What happened? I'll fill you in as we walk. Let's get out of here, all of us, before we freeze. After leading her small party back to the partially open campground near the ranger station while answering their questions as best she could, Brooke saw them safely settled, then reported the incident to her superior, the head ranger Georgia Henning, via radio. "All right," the older woman said, sounding less than pleased to be disturbed after office hours. "Go back to your cabin and warm up. I'll send someone over to take your statement while it's fresh in your mind." "I doubt I'll forget," Brooke replied, trying to quell any hint of sarcasm. Henning's comeback was devoid of the humor that might have made it easier to take. "Some people adapt to the wilderness well and some don't, Stevens. You can't lead groups of hikers on effective nature walks if you're jumping at shadows." "Yeah, well, this shadow grabbed me. I didn't imagine it." Brooke had continued to walk swiftly as they talked and was almost home. "If you insist. You have witnesses?" "There were a couple of hikers out there who heard me scream and rushed over, but the guy who grabbed me fled the scene before they arrived. I'm the only one who saw what he did." Closer to her cabin, she noted clusters of footprints in the snow and mud, particularly at the base of a window. "Whoa. Hold on." "What?" "Stevens, report." "I was blaming my feelings of being watched on the memory of that couple who were murdered in the park last month. It looks like my jitters were for a good reason. Somebody left tracks all around my cabin." "Explain." "You almost have to see this for yourself. There are so many prints here, it looks like somebody held a family reunion." "Any chance we can follow them?" Brooke swept her light over the uneven ground and shined it into the thicket at the base of some smaller red cedar and western hemlock trees. "Maybe. I can see boot prints leading away." "All right. The cabin is secure?" "Looks like it. If I go up on the porch, I may destroy evidence." "Okay. I already have rangers responding. I'll be out as soon as I've contacted our park K9 unit and ordered a tracking dog. In the meantime, stay out in the open, where you can see and be seen. Help will be there in moments." Affirmative. Brooke was glad her boss was so organized, even if that trait did drive the Mount Rainier Ranger staff up the wall. At this point, her only regret was leaving the site of her attack on the trail instead of calling it in from there and waiting for official assistance. She drew a shaky breath. A young couple, Stacy Stark and Jonas Digby, had been shot a mere 40 or 50 yards from where she had been jumped tonight, and their killer was still at large. At this point in the ongoing investigation, every clue must be carefully examined, and she had blown it when she'd left the scene of her assault. Sounds of approaching vehicles echoed in the distance. Brooke had to admit she didn't care who was coming, even if the responders included her by-the-book boss, because there would soon be one of the magnificent working dogs, too. Picturing the impressive German shepherd she'd seen at the Stark Lodge, and hoping he was the canine they sent, she folded her arms across her chest for warmth and shivered. This promised to be a long, long night. K9 Officer Colt Maxwell and his bloodhound, Sampson, had been temporarily placed at the Stark Lodge near Mount Rainier National Park as part of the investigation into a double murder the previous month. Usually, he was paired up with his colleague Danica Hayes and her protection dog, Hutch, but since they were out on a different assignment that evening, Colt was assigned to respond to the call inside the park with fellow officer Willow Bates and her canine, Star, a German shorthair pointer. "I'll go talk to the ranger," Colt told Willow as he pulled his PNK9 SUV to a stop behind one of the official park vehicles. "No sense both of us and our dogs getting chilled if they don't need Star's skills." "Call if we can help," Willow said. He nodded and then circled behind the SUV. He released Sampson from the specially constructed safety area in the rear and snapped on a tracking lead. All floppy ears and drool, the bloodhound jumped down with a plop and looked up at Colt, clearly eager to work. There was always an underlying sense of excitement whenever he and his canine were called to the scene of a crime, even though Sampson was rarely asked to track a live human being. Most of his work involved finding the deceased, and he was very good at locating bodies. Several rangers stood guard at access points to a small cabin. Headlights and spotlights from park vehicles shone on the yard, casting shadows in the unevenly packed snow. Colt kept Sampson at heel as he sought out the person in charge to report for duty. The head ranger, Georgia Henning, was facing a younger female ranger when Colt approached.